I bought a quiet house to start over, but then I heard the whispers in the crawlspace. I bought the house because it was quiet. Not peaceful, mind you, quiet. There's a difference. Peace implies some kind of harmony, a feeling of safety. This place never gave me that. But it was silent, and after the last few years of noise divorce proceedings, my sister's sudden death, the collapse of my design business, I was willing to trade comfort for quiet. The realtor hadn't said much, just that the house had a lot of character and great bones. I should have paid more attention to that second part. It was a 2-bedroom bungalow tucked into the edge of a decaying suburban sprawl, just outside Halifax. From the outside, it looked squat and unimpressive, with faded blue siding and a roof that dipped slightly in the middle like it was shrugging. But it was cheap. Too cheap, if I'm being honest. And it came with no neighbours for a 3-lot radius, which suited me just fine. I moved in the first week of March. Snow still clung to the ground like mould, and the wind had that pre-thaw sting that felt more personal than seasonal. The inside of the house was dry and hollow, as if it had been exhaling for years and finally ran out of breath. The floorboards creaked, but only when I moved. That's important. Remember that. The crawlspace beneath the house was shallow, just 3 feet of clearance between the dirt and the wood slats of the floor. There was no basement, just a small trapdoor in the laundry room and a flashlight left behind by the previous owner. I opened it once, just to check for mold or rats, but the flashlight died after 30 seconds, and the darkness down there felt thicker than it should have. Still, everything else checked out. Electricity worked. Water ran clear. I told myself this was the reset I needed. But then the whispers started. It was around the second week. I'd just started to unpack my office, a little den near the back of the house that overlooked the forest. I was organising my sketchbooks when I heard something, not words exactly, more like breath with intent. A soft exhale just beneath my feet. I froze, listened, nothing. Then, an hour later, it came again. Not loud, not threatening, just there. At first, I assumed it was the wind slipping through the crawlspace vents, or maybe a squirrel under the floor, but the sound was too deliberate. I'd be sitting in silence, thinking about dinner or bills or how I hadn't called my mother in weeks, and the breath would respond. Not to me, not to my name, but to my thoughts. It wasn't until the 3rd day that I tested it. I was standing in the kitchen, wondering if I had any more instant coffee when I thought I should have bought sugar, and from beneath my feet, a voice said so softly I almost missed it. You did. I dropped the cup I was holding. It shattered across the tile. I didn't move for a full minute. Then, cautiously, I checked the pantry, pushed aside a box of stale cereal and a tin of soup, and found, tucked in the corner, a brand new bag of sugar. Still sealed, still marked from the store I thought I hadn't visited. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up on the couch, eyes fixed on the floor, heart thudding so hard I could barely hear. Around 2 a.m, I finally whispered aloud, "What are you?" The floor answered, "We're listening." I backed into the wall. My knees buckled, but I didn't fall. I waited for something more, but there was only silence. The next morning, I convinced myself it had been a dream. Sleep deprivation, stress. My therapist always said the brain plays tricks when it's desperate for structure. So, I made a routine coffee, a walk, sketching, lunch, organising. I spoke out loud to myself to drown out the quiet. For a few days, it worked. I thought I had a handle on things. Until I thought about Hannah. She was my sister. She died in a fire 2 years ago. House fire, still unexplained. She was asleep, they said, never woke up. But that morning, I was thinking about her laugh. She had this way of cracking up that started as a hiccup and ended in a wheeze. And I remembered the last voicemail she left me, one I deleted, without listening, because we were fighting. I was thinking, I wish I'd heard what she said, when the voice in the floor whispered, "She said she forgave you." I stood absolutely still. My hands went numb. I sank to my knees and pressed my ear to the cold wood slats. "Who are you?" I whispered. "What you buried?" It didn't make sense. I told myself I imagined it. That maybe I was remembering something she said years ago and my brain just filled in the blank. But the next day, it spoke again, and the day after. Always softly, always in response to things I didn't say out loud. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? But I started testing it, thinking questions like, what's under the trapdoor, or what's your name, and listening closely. Sometimes it would answer, sometimes it would just breathe. One night, I asked, "Are you alive?" The answer came after a long pause. Not anymore. I started to feel watched. Not followed, just observed. Like when you feel someone looking at you through a window you can't see. Then I noticed the photos. It started with one on my desk. A picture of me and my ex-wife Camille taken in 2017. She was smiling and I had my arm around her shoulders. Only, when I looked at it last week, something was off. My hand was gone. Not cropped, not smudged, just gone. Like it had never been there. I compared it to the digital version on my phone. In that one, the hand was still there. But in the printed photo, the space between us was widening, the pixels stretching unnaturally, as if the image itself was trying to forget. That night, the whispers started again. They were more urgent now. "Don't remember. She's coming. The trapdoor. Watch the trapdoor." I didn't sleep. The next morning, I found the trapdoor in the laundry room slightly ajar, just an inch, but enough to smell the earth underneath. I shut it, bolted it, pushed the dryer over it. By now, I was unraveling. I knew it. I wasn't eating. I barely left the house. I called my friend Joel, the only person I trusted, and begged him to come stay a night. He agreed, mostly because I sounded like a lunatic. When he arrived that afternoon, I told him everything. Not all at once, just enough to make him uneasy. He laughed it off at first, the way people do when they don't want to believe you. But that night, he heard it too. We were sitting in the living room, watching some old movie, when I thought, please don't let him hear it. And from the floor, clear as breath, he hears. Joel paused the movie. "Did you say something?" I shook my head. The whisper came again, closer this time, almost between us. He sees. Joel's face drained of color. "Okay," he said, standing. "Nope, I'm out." I begged him to stay, told him I needed someone there. He looked at me like I'd broken something sacred between us. "I'm not staying in a house where the floor talks," he said. Then he left. The next morning, I got a call from the police. Joel was found dead on the highway, just 20 minutes from my place. Car veered off the road into a ravine. No skid marks, no signs of braking. The officer said he looked terrified. Like he saw something that made him forget how to drive. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The guilt was too sharp, too sudden. That night, the whispers changed. They didn't just answer thoughts anymore. They started asking questions. Do you miss her? Do you blame yourself? What would you give to hear her again? I tried ignoring them, but the thoughts kept coming. Hannah, Joel, Camilla. Memories I hadn't touched in years started surfacing. Things I'd buried. Regrets. That's when I realized the voice in the crawlspace wasn't random. It was something I invited. Or worse, something I made. And it wasn't done with me yet. The day after Joel died, I walked barefoot through the house, listening. I wasn't trying to provoke the voice, I just didn't want it to surprise me again. My feet skimmed across the cold floorboards, pausing at creaks and soft moans in the wood. Everything sounded normal. But normal was deceptive in this house. By mid-afternoon, I sat by the trapdoor, staring at it. I hadn't opened it since pushing the dryer over it. Now the dryer was moved somehow. I never heard a sound. The bolt was still shut, but something had clawed faint lines into the wood around the latch, like fingers made of splinters trying to pry it open. That night, I didn't sleep again. Around 3 a.m., I was standing in the hallway between the kitchen and the office when I felt the floor vibrate beneath me, a gentle thrum, almost a hum. Then a whisper so close it felt like breath on my ear. We were many. I spun, heart jackhammering, but the hallway was empty. The whisper came again beneath my feet, trailing along the floorboards like it was crawling with sound. Now we are one. You are near. I ran to the door. I needed air. I needed space that wasn't enclosed by wooden slats and soil and half-formed words in the dark. Outside, the cold air slapped me. The forest behind the house stood silent and stiff, bare branches clawing the sky like they were trying to keep it from collapsing. I walked the edge of the trees until dawn, afraid to go back inside. When I finally did, the whispers were waiting. They didn't stop this time. They never stopped. They followed me from room to room, muttering under the floor, always responding, never initiating. Until they did. That evening, I sat in my office, sketchbook open, pencil in hand. I hadn't drawn in days. I tried to focus. I thought about trees, shadow, shape, anything not related to the voice. Then I heard it. You buried her. I froze. What did you say? She screamed. You left. No, I whispered. No, I didn't. But I had. It was a memory I'd fought to erase something from years ago. I was 19. Hannah had gone missing at a party. Everyone blamed drugs, bad choices, some random guy. But I found hair. 2 days later, in the woods behind the old cabin we used to sneak into, she was sobbing, wrapped in a shredded coat, eyes wide like she'd stared into a pit that never ended. She begged me not to tell anyone. She said they'd hear her if I did. I didn't understand then. I left her there to get help. When I came back, she was gone. 3 days later, she turned up again, pretending nothing happened. And then 2 years after that, she died in the fire. Now, the whisper was digging into that memory like a splinter into skin. You buried her story. You left her to them. I dropped the sketchbook. The pages fluttered open, and there it was. A drawing I didn't remember making. A black hole beneath a wooden floor. And inside it, faces. Not human ones. Twisted, sharp, pale things with too many eyes and mouths that weren't mouths but gaping seams of light. I flipped the pages. More drawings. Scratchy, ink-dark sketches of a woman with no eyes, her mouth sewn shut. A man crawling into a hole and vanishing. A house with arms. I threw the book across the room. That night, I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, no one was there. But on the porch was an envelope. Inside, a photograph of Camille. Taken last year, after the divorce. She was standing on a street corner, looking over her shoulder. But her face was blood-smeared like wet paint. In the corner of the photo, someone had written, "Do you want to forget her?" I burned the picture in the sink. The fire didn't go out. I threw water on it. Nothing. The flames hissed, pulled inward, then died with a sound like someone inhaling a scream. That's when I knew I couldn't stay here. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and left the house by foot. I didn't care that it was 2 a.m. or that my car wouldn't start. I just walked. I made it to a gas station on the highway after an hour. I called Camille. She didn't answer. I called again. Finally, she picked up. She sounded groggy. "It's 3 a.m. "I think something's wrong," I said. "It's the house. It's doing something to me. And now it's trying to do something to you." Silence. "Camille?" She sighed. "You're not well, Nathan. I think you need help. I'm telling you the truth." "I told you not to buy that place," she said. "I told you it looked like the kind of house where things rot underneath, and you laughed." "I didn't know." Then, softly, "You didn't listen to me then. Why would you now?" The call dropped. I stood in the fluorescent buzz of the gas station, holding the deadline, wondering if I'd ever really left the house at all. When I got back, because of course I went back, the trap door was open. Not wide, just a crack. And from the crack came a sound like weeping. Low, wet, human. I stood over it for a long time. Then I said, "Tell me what's down there." The reply came, almost tender. "Memory." I opened the door. The flashlight flickered. The air below was rank earthy, sweet and rotten all at once. I crawled in. The dirt floor was uneven, the beams above sagging with age. Cobwebs clung to my face, and something skittered across my hand, but I didn't stop. In the far corner, I saw it. A patch of disturbed earth, like something had been dug up or buried. Beside it, a small wooden box. I opened it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, all of Camille, Hannah, me, Joel, all with their eyes scratched out. Underneath the photos, a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it with shaking hands. In my own handwriting, she begged me not to remember. That's when I heard the breathing behind me. I turned. There was no one. But the crawlspace had changed. It wasn't 3 feet high anymore. It stretched downward an impossible tunnel of black, dirt-walled passage leading into the earth. I should have run. I wanted to run. But I couldn't move. The tunnel pulled at me. Not physically, mentally, like it knew my thoughts, and it had answers I couldn't ignore. Then I heard Hannah's voice. Clear, soft, terrified. "Nathan, are you there? I don't want to be here anymore." I screamed. Crawled backward. Slammed the trapdoor shut. I nailed it shut with whatever I could. Find boards, screws, bolts. Then I pushed the fridge over it. I didn't care about logic anymore. I just wanted it sealed. The whispers didn't stop, but they changed. They became voices I knew. Camille's, Hannah's, Joel's, all whispering not to let it out. Don't let it remember. Don't dig it up. Don't answer it back. I haven't left the house in days. I don't sleep. I barely eat, but I listen. And last night, for the first time, I whispered something back. I said, "What do you want from me?" The floor didn't answer, but the mirror did. Across the room, my reflection moved. It tilted its head, but I didn't. And from its mouth, it whispered. To finish what we started. After the mirror moved, I covered it. A blanket, duct tape, whatever I could find. I didn't want to see what might happen if I looked again. I knew better. Whatever was whispering beneath the floorboards had found another way in through reflections, maybe, through memory, through me. That was the worst part. I was starting to forget what my own voice sounded like. The whispers filled every silence. Every pause in thought was replaced with a wordless murmur, a suggestion, a name. I tried to drown them out with music, with the television, with old recordings of Camille's voicemails, but it didn't matter. The voices were in the silence now, sewn into it like mold in old bread. I'd stopped drawing entirely. Every time I tried to sketch something just to distract myself, the pencil would move on its own. It didn't float or fly, nothing dramatic. But it would just nudge a little, like a magnet dragging iron filings from beneath the page. Eventually, I'd look down and realize I'd drawn something without knowing it. A hand reaching up from beneath the floor. A man standing in my bedroom doorway with no face. Or worse, myself, sitting on the crawlspace door with hollow eyes and a mouth sewn shut. I tore out every page and burned them. But the drawings came back. Once, I found one tucked into my pillowcase. Another taped inside the fridge. The worst was one I found inside my own jacket pocket. A perfect sketch of Camille, asleep in her apartment bed. In the corner of the page was scrawled, in my handwriting, "Closer every night." That was the moment I knew it wasn't just me in danger anymore. I picked up the phone. I didn't care if she hated me, I had to warn her. She answered on the second ring. "Nathan? Camille, you need to listen to me." A long pause. "Is this about the picture?" My stomach turned cold. "What picture?" She sounded shaken. "It was slipped under my door this morning. A drawing of me, sleeping. I thought you sent it." I couldn't breathe. "Camille, listen to me. That house something in it is watching people. It's copying them, drawing them, whispering to them. I think it's trying to become them." "What are you talking about?" "Do you still have the drawing?" Another pause. "I burned it." "No," I whispered. "That doesn't work. It comes back." Then, in a voice so small I almost didn't hear it, she said, "There was a word on the back." I froze. "What word?" "Remember." My knees buckled. I'd never told her about the whispers. Not about the trapdoor. Not even about Joel's death. She had no way of knowing that word was the one they kept using. "Camille, you have to get out of your apartment, right now. Come stay with me. I know it sounds insane, but I swear to you something is reaching out of the floor, and it's using my memories to do it." She hesitated, then said, "I'll come in the morning." "No, you have to come now." But the line was already dead. That night, I didn't hear Camille's voice from the floor. I heard something else. "We are rising." I went to the crawlspace door, still nailed shut and pinned beneath the fridge, and I heard it breathing again, but it didn't sound human. It sounded like multiple mouths, speaking in sync but out of time, some fast, some slow, some laughing, others sobbing, all of it leaking out between the floorboards like heat from a dying fire. Then a new voice. Joel's. "Nathan, it's cold down here." I backed away. I don't remember going to sleep, but I woke up on the couch sometime after sunrise. The house was still. The whispers had stopped. For the first time in days, it was silent. That's when I knew something was wrong. I ran to the fridge. It was moved again. The trapdoor was wide open. The nails had been pulled out, not broken or splintered, just removed, carefully, deliberately, like someone had undone my work by hand. I leaned over the edge and looked down. What I saw wasn't a crawlspace anymore. It was a staircase. Descending into earth, wooden steps slick with moisture, the air thick with rot, and something sweeter underneath like honey left too long in a jar. I don't know what compelled me to go down. I told myself I never would, that I would seal it forever. But there I was, one hand on the doorframe, one foot on the top step, descending into a place that had no right to exist. There were no lights, but I could see. The walls were packed soil, pressed tight, as if the house had been buried instead of built. I went down 15 steps, 20, 30. At the bottom was a corridor, narrow, pulsing slightly, like it was breathing. There were no voices here, just the sound of something alive. Then I saw her. At the far end of the corridor, Camille. She stood barefoot in her nightgown, eyes blank, arms at her sides. I called her name. She didn't respond. I ran to her. The moment I touched her shoulder, she crumbled. Not metaphorically, literally. She folded inward like paper and collapsed into ash. Not even a scream, just a whisper of dust, and the shape of her still lingering in the air. Behind me, I heard footsteps. I turned and saw myself, standing at the top of the stairs, watching. I blinked and he was gone. The whisper came again, all around me. "We forget to remember. You help us become." I ran. Up the stairs, into the kitchen. I slammed the trapdoor and re-nailed it, weeping. Then I called Camille again. She didn't answer. Her phone went straight to voicemail. I called again, and again. Then finally, someone picked up. But it wasn't her voice. It was mine. "Nathan can't come to the phone right now," the voice said, smooth and flat. "He's with her." Click. The line went dead. I collapsed in the hallway and screamed until my throat tore. Then I heard the doorbell. I looked up. Camille stood on the porch. Alive. Normal. Smiling. But something was wrong with her eyes. They didn't blink at the right times. They watched me too closely. She raised her hand to the window and tapped twice. I didn't open the door. Instead, I whispered, "Tell me something only Camille would know." She smiled wider and whispered back, "You never buried the ashes." I hadn't. Not really. After Hannah died, they gave me her ashes in a simple box. I kept them. Couldn't let go. They were still in my closet. Still sealed. Still heavy with something that didn't feel like closure. I looked at the hallway mirror. The one I'd covered. The blanket had fallen. In the reflection, Camille wasn't outside. She was inside. Standing behind me. Smiling. I didn't turn around. Not right away. I watched the mirror, Heart pounding so hard I thought it might shake the glass. Camille's reflection stood behind me, too still, too calm. Her eyes didn't blink, her mouth didn't move. But I could feel her smiling. Then she spoke, and her voice came from everywhere at once. "You already let me in." I turned. No one was there. But the air was colder, thicker. The light in the hallway had dimmed, not from the bulbs, no. They still glowed softly, but like something had settled over the house, muting reality. The trapdoor began creaking, not opening, breathing. The wood flexed beneath the fridge, expanding and contracting with slow, pulsing rhythm. The nails I had driven into the floor started rising, as if the boards were rejecting them. And in the silence, the whispers returned. But now, they weren't whispers. They were names. Hannah, Joel, Camille, Nathan. Over and over, in overlapping, discordant chorus, spoken with voices that sometimes weren't even human, croaking, shrill, wet, low, mimicking, mocking. I backed into the kitchen, trying to think, what did it mean? What did they want from me? Then I realized something. They weren't haunting me. They were becoming me. Every sketch, every thought, every forgotten guilty had been feeding them. And now, they knew enough to wear me like a mask. I ran to the closet, grabbed Hannah's ashes. They felt heavier than before, like they were full of something alive. I didn't understand the rules of this thing, this house, this voice, but it had told me the truth before. Twisted, yes, but truthful. You never buried the ashes. Was that the key? Was that what tethered it here? I carried the box to the fireplace and dropped it inside. Poured lighter fluid. Lit the match. The flames burst upward and then turned black. A wave of cold hit me, like air being sucked from the room. The fire didn't give off heat. It roared like a waterfall, but everything in the room went silent. And I heard her scream. Hannah. From beneath the floor. From inside the ashes. I should have stopped. I should have reached in and pulled them out. But some part of me knew what she was now wasn't really my sister anymore. Something had hollowed her out, or maybe she'd let it. The screams died with the flames. The ashes turned to powder and blew upward in a burst of grey. Then, stillness. For the first time in weeks, the house was truly silent. I sat on the floor, panting, watching the trapdoor. No more breathing, no more whispers. It was over, or so I thought. I slept that night, deeply, like a man who'd finally purged his ghosts. But the next morning, there was a message carved into my kitchen table. Not written, etched, as if with a knife or a fingernail. Thank you for letting us remember. The us is what made my skin crawl. I left the house that afternoon. Didn't peck, didn't look back. I drove until my tank was dry. Then I walked another 5 miles and checked into the first roadside motel I could find. They asked for my name. I hesitated. For a moment, I couldn't remember it. Not because I forgot, but because something else tried to answer first. I told them my name was Matthew. Ali? Just in case it was still listening. That night, I dreamed of the house. Not how it looked, how it felt. I was beneath it, crawling through the dirt, and ahead of me were dozens, no, hundreds of others, all identical to me, all hollow-eyed, all whispering my thoughts before I could think them. They turned as one and said, "We are almost whole." I woke up screaming. I checked out the next morning and drove to Camille's apartment. She wasn't there. Her door was unlocked, her bedroom cold, her bed still made. But in the mirror across from her window, her reflection stood staring back at me. Motionless, expressionless, not blinking. I shattered it, called the police, filed a missing person report. They asked if I was a relative. I said no. I didn't want to be connected to her now, not to what she might have become. Back at another motel, I scoured the internet for the house's history. I found nothing. No records of previous owners, no sale history, no address before 1974. Just a note in an archived Halifax city record that read, "Original structure condemned due to rot. No foundation. Structure rebuilt on site. Soil testing inconclusive." That was it. No further details. No mention of a crawl space. Like the house itself had swallowed its past. Then I checked my phone. There was a voicemail. Unknown number. I played it. Kemi voice. Barely a whisper. The reflection. Isn't you anymore. Then silence. Now I live far away. New name, new city, new home. No floorboards, just concrete and steel, and no place for voices to hide. And still sometimes when I think something I shouldn't, I hear it answered. Not aloud, not whispered, but in my own voice, responding before I finish the thought. And I wonder, what did I really bury? Hannah? The whispers? Or just the last parts of myself that hadn't already been replaced? If you're hearing something under your floorboards, don't listen. Don't answer. Don't remember. Because once it knows your thoughts, it doesn't need your permission. It just needs your name.